Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. Mauricio Pochettino is the hot favourite to return to Tottenham this summer. Let's talk about why that would be a huge mistake for Spurs and who they should be looking at as their next manager. Let's get into it. So, yesterday we spoke about what looks like being the end of Spurs. Conte clearly not engaged, not the way forward for Spurs. They'll have to part ways in the summer, regardless of whether they scrape top four. Keeping Harry Kane at the football club is going to be very difficult. You know, even today there's stories that he's highly likely to go to Manchester United, which I've had a hunch for quite a while. But we're talking Tottenham. What should they do? I want to see what Arsenal fans think, Chelsea fans, Man United fans, Liverpool fans, fans of other clubs. Look at Spurs because they're the problem. I've said this many times. For years, Spurs have been a very inoffensive club. Yes, it's because they don't win anything, but they're actually a club that most people don't have a huge issue with. So we can all look at this and go, you know what? What are Spurs? You look at a football club and you go, they're that, don't like them, you know, they're okay. I think Spurs have always been a club for me that they have a bit of flair. They can get a result on their day, but yeah, they don't win anything. But under Pochettino, they consistently got top four. Under Conte, they're still fighting for top four. Spurs need an identity. They need to be a team that is easy on the eye. I think that's what Spurs have to be. Spurs can't be what they've been under Conte this year or what they were under Mourinho, where it's grinding out results. Yeah, you win games, but it's just not very entertaining. They've got to be entertaining. They've got to be a team that plays progressive football. And there are so many teams doing that at the moment. Pochettino, I'm not a big fan in going back anyway. I don't think it's a very good life lesson to go back in anything, whether it's a pub that you didn't like, or whether it's an ex-relationship, or whether it's a manager going back to your football club. I don't think it tends to go well. And there's big examples of that. Mourinho obviously went back to Chelsea and did win the title, but it ended really badly. It makes you think, was it worth Mourinho going back to win that title for it to fall apart so badly afterwards? Ronaldo going back to Man United, again, the first season was pretty good, but the end was terrible. So I don't think, even when it goes well, it really does much for your legacy. Some things are left alone and best left alone. But the big reason I wouldn't go back if I was Spurs is because football moves on as well. Spurs probably feel a little bit vulnerable, a little bit desperate. They had a good relationship with Pochettino. And I think that, things have moved on. Going back to an old relationship, right? Imagine you come out of a relationship, you're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling like you're not where you used to be. You're out on a night out, you see an old flame, you have a drink, you get on quite well, and you think, I want to go back there. Well, why do you want to go back there? Oh, because we had the same interests. We used to like the same films. We used to be, very active in all areas. You get back with them, and you know what? Netflix has come along. Don't really like films anymore. Don't like going to the cinema. I like to spend my weekend just lying in bed watching 10 episodes of a series on Netflix. You don't want to do that. I still want to go down the cinema. They're not as active anymore. Watching that Netflix has given them a bad back. They can't do the things they used to do. So suddenly, what was good before isn't good now because they've changed, and maybe you haven't, or you've changed and maybe they haven't, or maybe you've both changed. I think Pochettino has changed. I think at Spurs, he was, moving from Southampton, a very highly regarded up-and-coming manager, and did very well. Did very well there, but ultimately failed. They didn't win the Champions League. They didn't win anything, and it was time to go with Pochettino. It didn't end with him saying, "Thank you, Spurs. I love you. I'm off somewhere else." It ended up with the sack. So if you're going to revisit something, look at how you've moved on and look at why it ended in the first place, because there was probably a good reason. Now, Pochettino went to PSG. Many managers have failed at PSG. But we were linked to Pochettino at Manchester United a year ago, and we had the choice that Spurs have got now, but we didn't have the emotional attachment. I didn't want Pochettino passionately. I wanted Ten Hag. And the reason I wanted Ten Hag was because, Pochettino's Premier League proven and, he's very well liked in the media. And all the ex-players wanted Pochettino because he was familiar and they didn't know much about Ten Hag. But the fans wanted Ten Hag because he's an exciting up-and-coming manager who's hungry. He's a manager that you can see has the potential to mix it up with the best. I don't see Pochettino coming back to coming back to Spurs and mixing it up with Pep and Klopp and Ten Hag and Arteta, because he couldn't mix it up with them in the first place. Spurs had a ridiculously bad record against the top 6 clubs. Very good against the other teams, but bad. What's going to change with Spurs and Pochettino? There was a ceiling before, and I actually think that ceiling will come down. I think it's a recipe for failure. And I wouldn't want to do it if I was Spurs, because it literally is the old, I've logged onto Facebook, oh, there's a girl or a boy I used to like at school. Oh, they want to meet up. Let's go and do it. No, don't do it. There's a reason you've not spoke for 20 years. You're walking into a trap. You know, God knows what baggage they've got. God knows what baggage you've got. It's not worth it. Where Spurs need to be looking is forward to the future, a new episode. It's like Liverpool's obsession with the boot room and the Liverpool way that, you know, after winning those titles in the late 80s, it took them 30 years to win a title again because they wasted 15 years trying to reminisce. Man United have done it a little bit. Spurs need to move forward. Where Spurs need to go, and look, what's the name of the sporting manager? Is it Almarim or something like that? He's reasonable. He's done a good job. I'd avoid Portugal, to be honest with you. I think Portuguese managers are, you know, everyone was doing that. I think you need to look at something new. I think the obvious manager is staring you in the face, and I don't really want to say it, but there's potentially 3 options. But I think the one I would look at, because I think in a short period of time, he's arguably the most progressive, exciting manager, certainly in the Premier League, but possibly in Europe, is the Brighton coach, De Zerbi. Brighton fans are going to go mad, but ultimately, I love Brighton. I think a lot of people like Brighton, but they're good players, and their manager and their recruitment will get snapped up by other clubs. It's just the way it's going to be. How do Brighton become a Spurs? How do Brighton become a Newcastle? I don't think they can. I don't think they'll ever have the fan base. I don't think they'll ever be able to build the stadia, and therefore I don't think they'll ever be able to attract players like Spurs always will. He, for me, or that type of manager, is what Spurs need to recruit. And Brighton fans might say, well, go and recruit your own De Zerbi. We did it after Potter went, and I agree. That's the type of manager they need to go for. Whether it's De Zerbi or not, that's the type of manager they need to go for. They need to go for somebody up and coming, talented, and allow them to, you know, paint the picture that they want to paint. And I think Pochettino, Mourinho, Nunez, they were all very bad. Well, Pochettino's not been appointed yet, but they're all very bad appointments. I thought Conte was a good appointment. It's just never worked. But De Zerbi type manager is what Spurs need to be looking at. And maybe let's be honest, maybe Thomas Frank, maybe the Fulham manager Silva. You know, there are other options, but that's what Spurs need to do. They need to turn a new page, a new chapter. And what works in football at the moment, because it all goes in cycles. And Spurs, to me, seem to always be operating 5 years behind everybody else. Like Nunez from Wolves was a terrible appointment. Mourinho, when he'd been sacked by Chelsea and failed at Man United, was a terrible appointment. They need to be doing what everyone else is doing. And whether it's what Arsenal have done, your biggest rival with Arteta, you know, plucking up a manager that was an assistant coach, but obviously had a really good CV and apprenticeship at Man City, or what Manchester United have done by plucking out the Ten Hag from Ajax, you know, up and coming, you know, really, you know, exciting manager. That's what Spurs need to do. They need to inject some excitement, because I tell you what, if Pochettino comes back to Spurs, Spurs fans might be quite excited about it, but I guarantee you, the minute it starts to go wrong, they'll be like, we never should have done this. You need to give them, not project's a horrible word because it could take years, but you need to give them some excitement, and I think that's what Spurs need to do next. But look, I'm not a Spurs fan. Spurs fans, let us know what you think. Fans of other clubs, let us know what you think. But for me, stay away from Pochettino, Spurs. I don't think it will work out well. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like, subscribe. Don't forget, tomorrow we will be doing watch-alongs. I'm doing the 3 o'clock games tomorrow, so Chelsea, Leicester and a few others. I can't watch Liverpool play Bournemouth. I can't watch Liverpool at the moment for obvious reasons. Thanks everyone for watching. Speak to you in a bit.